Report story. Mina skipped to her room and opened the door. The moment she entered the room, the happy smile and carefree eyes disappeared. Mina sighed heavily as she closed the door behind her. She pressed her back against the door and slowly slid down until she was sitting, allowing the door to handle the weight she was pressing against it with. She closed her black and amber eyes and brought her hands to her face. It wasn't the same. Mina took multiple deep breaths to try and reinvigorate herself to no success. What was going on with her? She sighed once again before reaching into her pocket and gripping the usual pink-cased smartphone. She quickly opened her Photos app and swiped over to a picture of Ochako and her in class. Mina smiled slightly. Aizawa really did her in for that one. But taking pictures in class was necessary. You shouldn't just have memories of before class and after class. Memories happen inside the classroom as well. She snickered to herself a bit. Aizawa didn't seem to share her beliefs. Ochako hadn't been very happy with her either for getting her in trouble. Sorry. Come on. You know what I said was true though. Memories happen inside the classroom as well. Not if you do your work. You make memories by forcing them. Now we're both in trouble. Ochako said, crossing her arms and puffing her cheeks. Come on. Forgive me. Forgive me please Ochako-sama. Mina cried as she hugged Ochako's waist, rubbing her cheek against her stomach. Ochako sighed, her face looking defeated as she gave in to Mina's horrible forgiveness antics. Mina smiled. I'll make it up to you. I see the way you look at Midoriya. You like him don't you? Let me hook you up. I got this. Mina no. Mina giggled to herself as she closed the app. Ochako always had a way of cheering her up if only she were here right now. The smile slowly left her face as she brought her knees to her chin. So much was going on right now. The lighter attack had sent things she couldn't fully understand into motion. People's trust in heroes were waning. Reconstruction for the city was going a bit rough. Classes were put on hold while the pros answered all the questions they had for how they handled and how they would prevent something like the gaslighter attack going forward. How could they possibly plan for something like that happening? And to top it off, Midoriya and Ochako weren't here to lift everyone's spirits. Whether they realized it or not, they were some of the most inspirational students in the class. Even Bakugo kept everyone aiming high. And all three of them weren't here without a single explanation from Aizawa. Mina was trying to keep spirits in the class high. But there was only so much she could do alone. Why did they have to leave? Mina felt tears piling up in the corner of her eyes. She knew she wasn't one of the brightest students in the class. But she deserved at least some kind of explanation, right? Even if not the full story. Suddenly there was a rapping noise at the door. Ashido, you in there? A rough voice called out to her from behind the door. Mina's eyes grew wide. She wiped the tears from her eyes and opened the door, revealing hardening quirk user. His fiery red hair was down to his shoulders as he wore black shorts with his usual white t-shirt. Hey, Ashido, Kirishima said, raising an awkward hand in greeting. Mina smiled an evil grin. Kirishima, coming to a girl's room late in the afternoon. What's got you so bold? Need some romance advice from the alien queen? She asked, doing an exaggerated pose. Hiroshima's eyebrows furrowed a bit though. Promoted stories. You'll also like. Feel fear, my dear Sword O. Revenge of the wronged hero who happens to be. One could have thought that someone as pure and innocent as Izuku Midoriya would be betrayed by his friends who he thought that he could trust with everything he has. Captured by Love. BNHA Villain Redemption a 136K 2.9K Izuku. Midoriya has never felt more confused. Being a villain has taught him to never get attached to anyone, because they'll either end up betraying you, or you'll be Golden, Hispanic, Latina. Femme. Reader. Ex-Izuku. Heiress to the richest company in the world. The government of Japan has good relationships with your grandfather. It was the duty of the government to save. There's something up with Izuku Midoriya. Midoriya had watched his mentor fight for his life and end up using the last of his power. Now being the sole wielder of One for All, Izuku knows he needs to work. Dream on B. K. Downwards arrow tip rightwards in which a jealous bachelor signs a deal with the devil in order to win over the heart of his first love. Katsuki Bakugo has loved the PR. Falling 71.9k 1.3 kever. Since Izuku Midoriya joined UA High School and settled in, he knew that the League of Villains were after him and his quirk, One for All. However, when the time C. Ashido, are you all right? He asked bluntly, cutting right to the chase. Mina faltered for a second before laughing. Where did that come from? Of course I'm all right. We stopped a huge villain. And Midoriya really came in for the save. I can say I officially helped save the city too. Mina said, pointing her thumb at her chest. Kirishma's frown had not disappeared. Ashy. Mina, can I come in for a second? He asked after a second's hesitation. Mina's smile faltered even more this time. Sure. She permitted. Stepping aside for Kirishima to come in, she closed the door behind him and once again began leaning against the door with her back turned towards it, her hands clasped behind her. W. What's wrong, Kirishima? You haven't called me my first name since middle school, she said with a slightly deeper fade of pink glowing on her cheeks. Ah, well, I didn't think it would be that big of a deal. Everyone in middle school called us by first names. Especially you. You stood out. We're one of a kind. Still are. I would know. I've known you the longest here. The two stood in silence. Sorry, I'll keep it to Ashido from now on. Don't wanna overstep my bounds, that wouldn't be very manly. No, no, it's fine. Really. Mina said, raising her hand to play with a lock of pink hair. Anyway, Ajiro, what did you need from me? Hiroshima turned a bright red before coughing into his fist. I was worried about you. You're not acting like yourself, he said, not looking at her, his fist still raised from his fake cough. What? Come on. I'm perfectly fine. Mina started, but Hiroshima turned his already raised hand towards her. You can't fool me, Mina. I said I've known you the longest. Hiroshima said. Mina looked directly into Hiroshima's unfaltering, intense gaze. Tears started forming in Mina's eyes again. She clenched her fist, trying to hold it in. I told you I'm fine. What do you not understand about that? She said, her voice slightly raised. Hiroshima, however, stood his ground. I understand that the Mina I know would always have a real smile on her face. And if there was nothing for others to smile at, then she would give them something to smile at. Then what am I doing wrong? That's exactly what I'm doing. Mina yelled, tears streaming down her face. Kirishima sighed. I also know that the Mina I know would go to someone for support, when she herself didn't have anything to smile at. He said gently. Mina fell. Her eyes grew wide at what Kirishima just said before she closed them angrily. She walked towards Kirishima and started banging on his chest. Well, I'm sorry I'm not her. I have to be there for Class 1A, for society. We lost. We won the battle but lost the war. What are we supposed to do? Society doesn't trust us, classes are suspended, and the person I went to most is gone. Ochako left. Who else am I supposed to confide in? She cried, as each pound to Kirishima's chest grew softer and softer until she was just gripping his shirt desperately. I know. It's tough. I understand. How would you understand? Mina yelled, looking right up into Kirishima's eyes, hers watery fully of sadness and anger. Kirishima's was full of nothing but calm, with a hint of sadness behind them. Well, he had a weird way of showing it, but Bakugo really did keep my head above the water throughout the school year. If that makes sense, he said with a sad smile. Mina's eyes grew wide as she took a step back from Kirishima. I'm sorry, I'm hurting, and you don't know what to do since your best friend isn't here. Kirishima finished. I understand. That's kinda why I'm here. Mina gave him a confused look. Why? Why are you here? She asked quietly. Kirishima grew a bright red, stuffing his hands in his pockets. He turned his head away to stare at the wall. Well, I knew you were going through it, everyone is, but you're important to me. If there's one thing I haven't been very manly at, it's paying attention to my own feelings. But one thing that would be even less manly. Kirishima looked back at the tear-stained Mina. Is ignoring when that important person is hurt. Mina brought a fist to her chest, clenching hard. She bit her lip. I don't want to overstep my bounds. I probably have already. I'll leave if you want me to. I just wanted to make sure you didn't need somebody with you. Kirishima said. However, Mina said nothing. She traced her steps back and found herself wrapping her arms around Kirishima's waist. Thank you, she said quietly. Kirishima, whose hands were in the air not knowing what to do, looked around at anything that could help him in their situation. Most people with experience would have hugged back, however Kirishima stood, hands in the air. Though a smile did appear on his face. Anytime. Hatsume-san, I need upgrades please. As fast as you can. Iida said, setting his gear down. Hatsume looked over at Iida's hero costume. Her usual energetic eyes looked carefully at the gear. Iida, I've upgraded your gear about 3 times this week alone, and there's a lot of reconstruction still going on. I can upgrade it again, but what are you really trying to accomplish here? She asked, putting her hands on her hips. It was rare for her to turn down an upgrade, but she could tell that's not what he really wanted. Iida sat down at the table and took off his glasses. I dunno, Hatsume. I dunno. Hatsume stared for a second, looking around the room. No one was there. She was left alone with Iida, who looked sad. What was she supposed to do here? Iida, look, I'm great at upgrading tools, but if you're going through something, maybe talk about it with someone else, she said. Iida looked up at her and sighed. You're right, I'm in the way of your reconstruction gear repairs, aren't I? Sorry. Iida made to get out of his chair. However, as he turned to walk out the room, Hatsume sighed. Wait, she said. Iida turned around, looking fairly confused. Look, I'm not real big on the emotional support side of things. Much more of a quirk support kind of person, she said as she turned and walked back to her workshop desk. But something's on your mind, right? You come here often when something's going on, not sure why though. You never willingly let me try my babies out on you. I have recently, after they have been thoroughly tested, Iida said, making his similar hand movements. Hatsume smiled devilishly. Well, I've got a few babies that I've been really wanting to test out. Hatsume started devilishly, however Iida quickly recognized that voice. You give it away so easily. I can hear it in your voice. It's a no, Iida said with a single swipe of his hand. Hatsume sighed with a smile, used to getting turned down by Iida. Yeah, anyway, what's got you bummed? I may not be the best talker, but I can at least listen while create my next baby. She said as she turned back, grabbing her tools. Iida sat back down at the table, collecting his thoughts. I guess I don't know what to do here. I feel like I failed. I'm supposed to be the class representative, and I couldn't guide the class or people to safety. Iida said, bringing his hands to his forehead. Midoriya had to come in and save the day. And he's amazing. I'm grateful to him. Proud of him. Happy he got his quirk back. But, I couldn't help. In the end, all I did was run around and give orders. A frown appeared on Hatsume's face as she tinkered with her support machines. This was a new feeling. Usually all her focus was on her babies. However, she couldn't help but have more of her attention on what Iida was saying. He had been coming around here a lot these last few months. He originally had seemed terrified of her and her support items. Hatsume had never minded. It's not like they had any reason not to be afraid. There was only one way to see if they would work or not, and that was testing them. Most students didn't come back unless they had serious need. Iida, however, was different. He would come just to say hi, or to get his gear upgraded, or to just hang out and study. It was like, he trusted her. Just like the sport festival, she had always just seen him as an unusually willing test subject. Someone to test her babies on and try out new mechanical experiments. She wondered when her view of him had went from just using him as a test subject to appreciating when he was here in the shop just to read. Or to talk. To just be there. She shook her head and refocused back onto what Iida was saying. She sniffed. She wasn't good with these sort of things. You're a class representative, right? Hatsume asked without looking back. Iida looked at the pink, back-length locks that flowed down her back. Why, yeah, that's why it was my duty too. That's why it wasn't your responsibility to begin with, she said sharply. Iida instantly stopped what he was saying to listen. Look, you're the class representative of a first-year high school classroom. You're just that, a student, she said. Iida looked down at his knees. Hatsume stopped tinkering and looked back, before returning to her tinkering. And yet, you still went out there and led like a true hero. You had no obligation to take charge. None of the students had any obligation to go out into the front lines. Yet you guys did. with nothing but quirks and some provisional licenses. And the person who led and organized them was you, at least from what I heard. So don't sell yourself short. Nothing. She lifted up the project she was working on to the roof light, closed one of her eyes and inspected it, as perfect the first attempt. Or the fifth attempt. Or the 32nd attempt. So you just gotta, keep creating. In your case, keep creating a new better version of the hero you wanna be. And learn from the older model. Hatsume retracted her arm and brought the device back down to the table as she worked. Iida stared at the backside of the black tank top girl he was listening to. He looked at the table that had his armor and helmet sitting on top of it. He smiled. I'm still gonna need that upgrade, you know. Midoriya and Uraraka are out on some special mission. I can't get left behind. I've got one enhancement, but it's only attempt 13. Hatsume said with her devilish grin. Iida smiled even wider. Let's see how we can make attempt 14 even better. I'm sure I can give you some feedback if I use it. Hatsume's smile fell as she turned back and looked at Iida with surprise. Iida's smile fell as he looked at her with concern. Hatsume, what's wrong? Your face is red. Do you happen to have a fever? In that case, we should get you right to recovery, girl. No, no, no. I'm fine. Give me those lead greaves and let me create already. She said, her smile back, but this time, it wasn't as devilish. Where stories live. Discover now.